Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show indeed. My name is Brad Medlin. He's Chris Touchberry. We're missing our third partner in crime this week, but Chance will be back when he gets a chance. Gonna say that a lot, I'm sure. Uh, this is Don't Call Me for IT Support. We are not your typical IT guys. We are rebranding. This is Don't Call Me for IT Support 2.0, as this is the reboot. It's been quite a while since we've been on here. We're glad to be back and happy to be back.
Welcome to the show.
So,
Show indeed.
oop. My name is Brad Medlin. He's Chris Touchberry. I have got to go mute that stream sound. It really is. That is now taken care of. But that also confirms that we did have sound in the LinkedIn Live. Thankfully. Going back. Alrighty. We got a jam-packed little discussion today. This is, like I said, Don't Call Me for IT Support 2.0. And this is the return of the reboot. Much like the Jedi returned in episode 6, we're starting number 1 this way. Gonna start off with the fun fact, next month they have episode 3 is relaunching for the 20th anniversary. And
Oh, nice.
somebody pointed out to me that the prequel trilogy is now just as old as the original trilogy was in 2000 when they launched. Makes you feel nice and young, doesn't it, Chris? So, as we always like to start, who are we? We're just a couple of guys with a dream of helping others better navigate the crazy world of workstations and other fun work technologies. That doesn't mean we're not gonna get into other things, but that's where we tend to focus our expertise on. So, got to start it off with, where in the world have we been? Last time we talked, it was 2024, maybe even late 2023, and things changed quite a bit, Chris. I had a lot
Yeah, sure.
happen. You had a lot happen.
Sure
2024
did.
was a intriguing year for the both of us.
That's a word.
I'm okay with that word. I'm not hurt by it one little bit. It is what it is. Can't say that things have worked. I literally reworked this from the last podcast we were talking about, and we were talking about Sapphire Rapids and the Workstation launched then. And we have Sapphire Rapids Refresh, which is basically taking the top end 60-core Sapphire Rapids chip and branding it over. We intended to do this much earlier in the year. However, I've been on the road quite a bit, but I'm working on a mobile setup for that for us, so it'll be more fun. Be able to pull that off pretty well. But yeah, lots to talk about. I mean, like I said, we just had life happen to us. A lot of different things, good, bad, and different. I've completely retooled the office that I'm in, so I mean, you can kind of see the setup that I've got going over here's a very different setup than it was before, which is a good thing, I think. Not a bad thing.
hmm
A lot of fun stuff coming out. A lot of fun things going on. Bread Ripper 9000. Not quite out yet, but 7000 actually has some competition for once. With Sapphire Rapids Refresh. I mean, it's not quite 96 cores, but it's 64, and that's pretty good. Also, just had some announcements from NVIDIA about the newest generation of Pro GPUs, making the 5090 look a little silly with its 96 gigs of VRAM. Also making things interesting, instead of going up from what I would have thought would have been 48 to 64 gigs, now doubling that to 96 by using 3 gigabyte memory modules. So that's kind of unique. A lot of memory module differences. You know, you got the 96 gig DIMMs and 48 gig DIMMs of RAM, not the normal standard 16, 8, 16, 24, or 8, 16, 32, and 64 gig kind of setups. Um, just a whole lot of things that are kind of different. Going to talk a little bit about the rise of the digital twin. That's something that's been a buzzword out there that has gotten more buzzy, especially in the last year. And yeah, finally, you know, kind of probably going to wrap it up with the little bit of a conversation of one that's near and dear to my heart, of the fact that we finally, well, mostly moved on from gigabit Ethernet. Dude, and that is 85 million years in the making. Good gosh, Moses. You know, and I like to tell people this too. If you were smart, which most people were back then because the wiring didn't cost any different, and you wired your house up with Cat 5e back in, you know, 2006, 2005, whenever that was run, you actually are wired for multi-gigabit Ethernet. Most people don't know that. Cat 5e is to 100 feet, or to 100 meters, is capable of transmitting 5 gigabit per second. I didn't know that until somebody told me. And that was kind of unique, but that is kind of cool. So, you know, we're hoping to get a more regular cadence. This is on a Saturday night, and not normally the night we like to transmit, but because of that, that's kind of the way we're going to do things. You might see us hopping up on a Wednesday from time to time. You might see us on a Tuesday afternoon, just whenever we feel that there's enough to report on and talk about, and enough cool things to really catch our eyes. It's going to be something unique that we can kind of, if there's something unique that we can follow, that's definitely going to be the way we're going to go. Always a unique way to do things, I guess, if we can help it. Also, I'm not going to lie, the fact that I can split screen on the 57-inch, and it's basically two, you know, 32-inch monitors. It's freaking awesome.
Yeah, I have LinkedIn in basically 1/3, Batman, YouTube in 1/3, and then Teams in the other 1/3 of my 32. I wish I had another monitor. I kind of wish I had one other monitor.
See,
But
you need the Batcave set up like I have. The Batcave setup is quite fun.
my laptop would get mad.
Yeah, well, that's why I have a desktop that's capable. Trust me, I got mad when I figured I couldn't. When I found out I couldn't truly run. When I upgraded from the UQW 40 20s or 21s that were 60 hertz to the UQW 25s that are 60 hertz from Dell, or that are 120 hertz, I mean, from Dell. I kind of thought I was like, oh man, this is going to be great. And then I realized that I couldn't run it all off of one single monitor or one single GPU. So therefore I couldn't actually use NVLink the way I really wanted to. I was like, okay, it stinks a little bit, but got to do what I got to do sometimes. It's not that bad though. I can handle it. So kind of to break into it a little bit. So what's 2025 kind of really truly look like for us? First of all, hopefully my voice completely comes back in the next couple of days. I've been sick the past few days. Been trying to beat some kind of pollen-induced cold that's just been breaking me down a little bit. But part of that's going to include us having some fun discussions. And where we're going to focus those discussions is probably going to be around, you know, newer technologies that are out, newer abilities for us to see things transition. AI is the other big buzzword. Data centers are massive. There are whole power plants coming online just to and being built or being brought back online technically just because of data centers. Kind of a unique thing. Gotta say that's
I
kind of
saw I saw some new product by Nvidia. It's not in the rundown. But just thought about it. It was launched at but GTC. They're trying to put so they have their NVL72 rack thing, and they're trying to on Rubin Ultra, I believe the name is. They're trying to do 576
mm,
video cards.
good lord.
It's 600 kilowatts
Man, oh
for the
man.
whole. I'm like, that's a lot. That's a lot of power, boss.
That's yeah, that's well, we'll take that and jump kind of into one of our things, but the plans that we've kind of got behind this is, like I said, we're going to be a little more sporadic with our, not sporadic in terms of time length, but more sporadic in terms of when we actually pop on to do a live. So just be out there, be ready, be prepared. Catch up with it the next day, listen to it as a like you would a podcast or something like that. If you want to just stream it and listen to us, maybe our voices will soothe your soul. I don't think that's possible, but it is what it is. Um, but the other thing we want to kind of come back out and remind people is we're here for you guys. So if we're going to be streaming live most of the time, it's almost always going to be on LinkedIn and YouTube. We're looking at adding back into the mix Facebook and or maybe some Instagram stuff for shortnesses. Gonna have some guests. Hopefully, hop in with us. So you might not always see just me and Chris or me, Chris and Chant. You might end up seeing just one of us with a guest. Just because sometimes that's easier. You might see all of us with a guest, and that guest is just prominently hilarious and brings in the comedy for us. But yeah, so much has happened in the past year. I mean, literally, we had Arrow Lake come out. We had to deal with Intel and their lovely Raptor Lake refresh issues. AMD launched another set of processors. They're up to Ryzen 9000 now, and they had their own botched launch there, which was kind of funny. Now they've got their I'm still going to say this, and I'm waiting to see it. Somebody said that there is going to be, and I hope there is, a 7950X or 9950X, sorry, with Vcache that's got, two Vcache dies. I would love to see that. I think that limiting yourself to just being one, it kind of negates the whole purpose of Vcache. It's like saying, "Oh yeah, I'm building this for a gamer who also wants to have an extra 6 cores that don't perform the same way." So it's like that's almost like big and little cores to me. Like if you're AMD and you're saying big and little cores, let's call a spade here. That's kind of the way I like to look at it. Ultimately, we've got a lot of cool things here to talk about, though. Sapphire Rapids did refresh. Now the 2000 series has a 26 core instead of a 24 core. I still could not figure out a way to get over about 600 watts through that thing, to be completely honest, Chris. As much as I could push it. Stably, it just didn't want to run it over 6,000 watts. Or 600 watts, sorry.
Which I mean is fine.
That's still a lot of power. That's a lot of power, but I mean that's telling you something. I actually did just a basic, because I don't really have I have a 60 core in here now, and I did a basic comparison over my own testing results, and at a lower all core clock speed, than the 56 cores that I tested before. The 60 core outscores it in the XTU benchmark, as well as it's, I mean, it handily handles. I mean, you can get maybe on the best of days 19 to 20,000 points. Like that's if you're doing the absolute best you can do. On the 26 core.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're south of 34, 35,000, it's kind of a bad day. So intriguing. You know, Intel's had their struggles, but I'm impressed there. I still love the Threadripper line of Threadripper Pro line. They did bring back the actual Threadripper normal line, but they kind of kneecapped it by only giving you four dim slots, which I just to this day don't understand.
We do sell a fair amount of non-pro.
Oh, I believe you, buddy.
I'll say that.
Well, yeah, I mean it's there's absolutely room for it in the market.
Yeah.
I just wish they'd have put four more Dems on. Plenty of room on the boards.
Yes.
It's not like they're putting Threadripper Pro, you know. I got one. I got the 26 core here. I can show you. These chips are not small, guys. Sorry for the fact that I haven't removed the thermal paste, but these things are big boys. I mean, that's a Shure SMD7.
It's a big chip.
It's a big chip. Threadrippers are bigger than this, and that's a 26 core, and it's, you know, it's a big boy. There's no reason that they couldn't have put, you know, four more DIMM slots on the board. You're not put, like I said, they're not going into micro ATX builds.
Right.
I mean, if somebody made a board to do that and then built one, I'm like, yeah, I mean, because you're just wasting PCI Express lanes at that point too. I mean, just that's an absolute waste of them. Completely. Although the one big benefit of the next generation GPUs, we finally hit PCI Express 5.0 for an actual graphics card. I was a little saddened to see that didn't happen, actually, with the last generation stuff. Hang on a second. Got to turn down that. Turn this up because I'm peeking on the actual thing. I don't want to peek. 2. There we go. So basically, what I was getting at with that statement, though, is sorry, if Intel can build a workstation board or a PC board that's got dual DIMM per channel, there's no reason that AMD could. I mean, imagine how much nicer it would be to be able to build a Threadripper normal build and put in, you know, not the same capacity, but a similar capacity. I mean, maybe the restriction is they say, hey, you can't have more than 128 gig DIMMs, which
is fine.
Still waiting to see. I know that they are supposedly in the wild, but
I think I've seen some 256s at Newegg, and they are expensive.
Well, yeah, but the 256s are still the stacked memory. I'm talking non-stacked 2 rank per channel.
The new tech.
2R4.
Yeah.
The finally on the newer nodes.
Yeah.
Shrunk down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yet to see those in the wild. Ones that should be in line with, you know, 35%, 45% higher than the 96 gig DIMMs out there, because that's Micron and Samsung have been producing them for quite literally a year and a half now, but they're just not really in the wild that much. That being said, I'm gonna pull up a article here. Copy that link. Paste and go. And then transition our screen to the display by actually using Bloop, bloop, bloop. My stream deck. So now I need to move you a little bit around because I haven't done this in a while with you. Nope, nope. I messed up. I messed you up. Need to fix this quickly. Gotta love a new live stream. Right, guys? And there we go. What did I click? AI search. Doesn't mean to do that. There we go. So, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I don't got to look at this side ad so much. So, NVIDIA, so our first topic today that we kind of want to talk about is the RTX Pro GPUs are out. And one of them has a 600 watt design. Now, okay, I'm going to do this because I need to do it because I've got to look at both of them side by side so I can actually do this. No, it's
the Workstation basically is the same cooler as the 5090.
I'm pulling the Tech Power Up article. Control C.
It's really
Control V. Yep. So I'm gonna scroll this one down. You guys get to look at this one so that y'all can see all the fun little pieces here. And then I'm gonna scroll down here. I'm gonna go to the actual Blackstation. Blackwell Pro. I'm gonna do the Max Q. I'm gonna scroll down and look at which the Max Q looks almost identical to the previous 2-gen Ada and A6000 cards.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, what do we get for 300 more watts max power? Right? Or 300 watts, you know, PL2, whatever they call it. What do we get for our max draw there? So we get the same effective clock speeds, by the way. No change there. For base clock. Boost clock is different. So the boost clock speeds are 2617 on the 600 watt card and 2288 on the 300 watt card. Based on the numbers, theoretical performance numbers here. You have and I'm going to kind of highlight it on this side. On the 600 watt, 502.5 gigapixels a second, 1,968 gigatexels a second, 126 teraflops in FP16. FP32 is 126 teraflops, and in 64 double precision, it's 1.968 teraflops. Highly performant at 600 watts. So, if we take 300 watts off that, what do we think? We're going to lose 50%, 60% performance?
No.
Well, I would be the first person to agree with you because you're definitely not going to. And that is a fact. So, I'm just going to do something fun here real quick. Yep. Moving some things around so I can continue that. I want you there. And that works. And we've got that where I can see everything now. Cool. So now I'm going to stream around over here and go over you do some quick math on us on the side of the screen over here. So I'm gonna go. Let's do the teraflops for double precision. 968. Divide that by. So we get a grand total of minus times. There's our lovely number, Chris. 14%. For 600 watts. For 300 more watts, ladies and gentlemen, you can get 14% more performance. It's almost like that's a lack of efficiency. Kind of is. Love to be able to prove it wrong. Love to be able to prove that it's, I mean, and like I said, this is all theoretical, folks. I mean, and it's all based on the fact that the boost clock is 2617 versus 2288. I would be the first person to say what's likely going to be the case. You're probably going to see about 25% more, maybe 30 in the real world. And the reason for that is that boost clock is not going to be sustainable at 300 watts on the Max Q edition.
Yeah.
It'll turbo up to that. It'll push a little harder, and it'll probably be the thing that we all love and to hate when it turns into that whirly sounding super blower mode and thermal throttle, and might have to thermal throttle just a little bit. That's not saying it will, but it might. But I mean, that's going to be, but the big thing is, and here's something that I've had some conversations with some other folks about from differing AI folks. The thing that doesn't concern them about that one is VRAM is really what they needed more of anyways, and the VRAM memory clock is the exact same.
Yes.
If they had done nothing but left the base clock at the same speed and set them a while, they'd have been happy with either one. The real thing that you'll learn about the way this is set up and why it's set up this way is apologize if I cough every now and then, guys. The thing that you're going to learn and see is essentially performance is going to be based around a lot more. The big win of all of these things and all these new GPUs, especially even the Blackwell gaming GPUs, is we finally moved to DisplayPort 2.1b. So, as someone that has an Ada 6000 with DisplayPort 1.4 still on it, I was kind of a little bit upset by the fact that they didn't take the time after launching the RTX 4090 series and giving it a 2.1 HDMI port to not at least give us one 2.1 DisplayPort. The standard had been out for a while, but what's also going to crack people up and make people realize this is kind of a unique feature at this point in time is with that DisplayPort, you know, we've got PCI Express 5.0 finally on the GPUs. That's the big ticket here. So your actual professional ability to use NVLink is going to mean something for once, because it was doable and worked functionally over PCI Express 4.0. The ability to share memory and actually now probably share some GPU horsepower is actually going to be something that we'll probably see, especially with large language models and things like that, becoming more and more prominent. Which is, hey, like I said, always a good thing. Always a good thing. I kind of think it's funny when people think about it and talk about those things, because they forget. And like I said, I bring in the whole power draw positioning piece, because I mean, I'm waiting to see benchmarks and discussions about it, because if that truly is just a 15%, maybe a 17% difference for 300 watts, something's got to change here, guys. Are we really going to start pushing? I mean, I give the example with overclocking on a CPU. I mean, I'll overclock a Xeon all day long. Guess what? I'm getting more performance out of it for over. Yeah, if I'm pulling, and it's not some minuscule amount, I'm getting more performance out of it. I'm pushing. I'm going. I'm. I don't want to say I'm doubling my performance, but I'm getting at least for double the power.
It's a lot. It's a lot more
But
power. A lot more performance.
It's probably 75% more performance for
Yeah.
you know 100 for double the power, something like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've got to figure out a way that if we're going to do this on GPUs now, you know, we've already got workstations these days that have to have two power supplies.
Yeah.
And if you got to have two power supplies for a workstation already, because here's the thing, in the United States, 20 amp breaker is going to push about 220 watt or 220 or 2.2 kilowatts of power, or 2200 watts. All right. That's, you might get plus minus, 3%, something like that. So if you're having to have if you're having to require multiple breakers to run a computer in your home to be able to, or even in an office. I mean, you and I imagine an office that has to rewire. You have to rewire an office for power just to have a couple of these big workstations at 4 or 5 desks. Where
And
you've got
a home is probably closer to only 15 amps. So 15 amp is like 1500 watt.
Most homes are 20 for most rooms, but that's
Okay.
20 for a room.
Okay.
Most, and that's, I would say 2000. I will correct myself and backtrack that statement. Prior to 2000, you're probably right. Back in the 80s and 90s, 15 amp was fine. Now there are mostly 20 amp breakers for most of those things, just because you never know when somebody's going to plug a space heater or want to plug a little window unit air conditioner or something like that in. So it just makes sense.
But still, like if you're buying, I don't know, 5 workstations you just want to do some crazy stuff and you're buying 5 workstations, each with 2 power supplies, that's going to be a problem.
Well, just imagine it this way. If you bought 2 of the 600 watt design
cards, yeah,
Blackwell Pro 6000s, buy 2 of them.
That's 1200.
That's 1200 watts right there. Put in
that's its own power supply.
Let's call it a next generation. Put in a next generation AMD Threadripper Pro that's probably going to that on PBO is probably going to draw 1500 watts by itself. Or
yeah.
well, let's be realistic. So let's say 1,000 watts by itself. Then you got to power all your peripherals and everything like that. And oh, by the way, if you got RGB, you got to have that,
And the RAM.
And exactly, peripherals, RAM, monitors, all that happy jazz. You're gonna exceed a 20 amp breaker pretty dang quickly. Now, yes, they don't draw that unless they're peak power drawing that, right? That's the way the world works.
We don't care about the low.
But
the low is whatever.
The low you can survive. If you can't survive the peak, though, what's the point?
Right.
That's the big thing. It's your big ticket you got to worry about.
Yeah, I was testing a 7995 WX a couple days ago, and I turned it on PBO for 2 seconds, and it jumped up to 980 watts and 92 degrees on a very nice water cooler, very nice fans. got very loud, and I stopped that test because I saw 980 watts. I was like, nope.
It goes back to where most people are going with a lot of these things is that they have to be liquid cooled with either a custom loop or something crazy. It's exotic cooling is apparently the thing these days. I'm not sure why it has to be or why it has been, but you know what? That's what we're doing. So we will get into it and do it the way we got to do it because that is the best we can do. And you know, speaking of other things that need to be cooled, one
Uh,
of the things you got to dissipate with heat and all that stuff
RDIMS.
are dims. I tell you, the performance difference I've seen. You know, we went into 2024 and talked. Oh, we want to do a lot of testing, do a lot of this, do a lot of that. That's really what we wanted to do. I got to do a good bit of it, thankfully. That was kind of cool. And one of the things that I found out, our dims, because you know, I'm used to the old school UDIM manufacturer. Show you, show you what I mean. Display rather than leave you hanging. So,
Mm.
older memory has these little tiny things that attach to it. The actual memory chips sit underneath this. You know what? Hang on a second, Chris. We're gonna get technical for a minute. We got to get technical for a bit.
It's the best kind.
Boop, 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 boop. That in there. Put that in there. All right. So this is your typical UDIM. Notice it's got like it has a heat sink on it. A lot of times they have RGB lighting in them, all kind of nice things like that. This is what an RDIM looks like. Usually how an RDIM shows up in a little tray. It's just the PCB with the memory sticks on it.
It gets hot.
This is a 32 gig stick. As you put more memory modules on it, they fill up the sides. One more. These are DDR5 RDIM sticks, by the way. And this is actually DDR4, but you get the difference. The reason I show you that though is you gotta cool them. If you're dumping heat into a case with a 600 watt cooler, yeah, you're probably putting that on like something like a core based machine or something like that. It's the only thing I can think of. I can't think of that going into a, but then again, then I ask myself why. Why would you put that into something that's got UDIMs in it? You know, I just I'm trying to find the market for this GPU, and I mean I'm the market. Don't get me wrong. I'm 100% that market. That if Nvidia's watching this right now, they are an amazing company, and I love their products. If they would like to send me one of these to play around with, again, I will tell you just how awesome it is, and I'll load the feature set up with it. Would I rather have the Max Q? Probably. But will I push the ever loving mess out of either one? Absolutely too. But the point that I'm making to that whole statement is, I mean, they're also Tech Power Up bothers me in the fact that they don't compare workstation GPUs to workstation GPUs. They compare them to like the 5090 and so on and so forth. So you kind of
This is exactly, yes. I hate it when companies do that. They're not the same.
I mean, I can put it to you this way. So if They say the Blackwell Pro is 100% and the 5090 is 83. Then they say the Ada 6000 is 100% and the
4090.
5090 is 122%. I mean, and so I get the theory here, because going back to it, the Max Q design. So what's the big differences? Outside of the 96 gigs of VRAM versus 48 gigs of VRAM, you've got, what's my memory bandwidth?
512 for
100,
both the Max.
1.79, no, that's memory bus. The bandwidth's
Oh,
1.79 terabits per second versus 960 gigabytes a second. Gigabits a second, sorry. So you got essentially double the memory bandwidth. I'm around and call that double the memory bandwidth, so that's nice, and double the memory. However, you have 24,000 versus 18,000 essentially, so rough math rounding, 25% more. Maybe 30% more shader or CUDA cores. 568 to see 752. Same number of ROPs. SM count is up. Tensor core count is up. So your floating point, though, is your double precision floating point on the Ada 6000 is 1000, it'd be 1.423 teraflops versus 1.721 teraflops. So about the difference in shader performance. Clock speeds 915 for the base, but 2505 for the boost. So yeah, I mean, call a spade here, but I'm seeing 30% more because you got 30% more cores. Really?
which they got because of the smaller node. I think it's a smaller node.
It's essentially the same. It's TSMC's 4N, which is still the 5 nanometer node. Which I'm gonna jump ahead of that next story, and I know we talked about RDIMMs and memory coolers like an airflow. You almost have to have a memory cooler for RDIMM already to be able to be highly effective, especially in a water-cooled environment.
Where there's no big air cooler, yes.
Yep, I am going to copy this.
Yeah, we'll go in there.
Yeah, yep. Paste it up here. Jump over here and go back to. I'm digging this. It's Stream Deck working for me today. Gotta love it. All right. So there have been some discussions. TSMC's mass production of 3 nanometer has been out for a while, but their wafer production has been occupied essentially by AMD and Apple. 2 nanometer comes out now. NVIDIA's still kind of on the back of the block. So what is it that NVIDIA is thinking about doing? Well, it would seem that Pat Gelsinger was maybe right. People ran a little early. Now, Intel as a company probably at the height of the times was a little bloated, much to the current CPU CEO's CPU take, if you want to call it that, his central processing take on how it is. He came into it. He left the board because he thought that the company was bloated with middle managers, essentially people in the middle that didn't really do a whole lot, but ran from one meeting to the next meeting to tell people things. I think that's something that's always a problem with larger companies is they get to that state. Um, and so maybe he does the right thing and leaves all the people at the bottom that need to be at the bottom and just brings them into bigger teams like they probably ought to be. A lot more synergy that way too, if you ask me. But his conversational piece and conversational discussion about it was that was an issue there. But he also agreed that Intel needed to keep its foundry in house. That's their golden goose. And once they, you know, mastered 18A or 1.8 nanometers, they'd actually have a process lead. Chris, you and I have discussed this before. Intel renamed their process nodes to better align them to
from a marketing sense.
From a marketing sense to what they were competitive with from a production state with TSMC. Mm-hmm. Now, most people may know this, they may not know this, but they did cancel their 3 nanometer node, their Intel 3 node, because it wasn't going to be ready in the amount of time to be ready for Intel 8 or for 18A. The gap was going to be too short. Products weren't going to work that, it was their last run of, they jumped on the EUV train way too late in the day and had to play catch up. And so that, as fun as it is to say, they had to make an executive decision and say, you know what, we're just going to skip it. So they are. However, from what it seems and reports out there, 18A is shaping up to actually be, their big ticket winner. And 18A, by the way, is still an EUV node. High NA is 14A, which is the next node, which they're already saying is yielding 75% better than every other node they had on EUV. Because it does the work in a fraction of the amount of masking. Which, if you don't know much about chip design, masking is the number of layers you have to lay on top of each other to be able to print the singular transistor. It means they can print them faster, basically, which is crazy. But 18A is shaping up to be a good node, and it also introduced backside power, which is something that it also introduces the gate all around transistors, which is something that TSMC isn't introducing until, I believe this is the node sub 2 nanometer. I don't know what they're going to call it. They're testing it on some 2 nanometer chips, but it won't be widely utilized on 2 nanometer. Essentially. So what's that mean? I think and then let me rephrase that. I do think gate all around GAA technology will be on 2 nanometer, but backside power will not. Backside power reduces signal noise. It means you get cleaner signal to your actual chip. Cleaner signal means it takes less power to power it, and less power to get the actual information in and out than you need. It's a more efficient method. Basically, think of it this way. Up until now, all of the power wires that ran into the CPU and all of the signal wires technically came in the front from the side. If you're looking at the CPU from the side, went up, went over, and then went down on the top of the die. Now, what they're doing is signal wires come in, go up and over the top from all four sides. Power through the substrate comes in, goes up from the bottom. Faster to the actual product, faster to oh man, it's going to change. It's going to make
easier.
It's going to make changes that people are, I don't know if they're prepared for, ready for, whatever you want to call it, but it's going to be unique, I think. I'm looking forward to seeing it at least. So, but that backside power is it comes with 18A. So guess what? Here's something where NVIDIA and Broadcom, as you can see in this conversation, AI chip powerhouses. Both of these companies are looking at Intel going, hey, you guys are good. And oh, by the way, Intel just announced the other day that 18A has moved out of the Oregon R&D facility into the Arizona facility for high scale or not high scale, what's it? Full scale manufacturing. It is on go now. What's that mean? That means that Intel's actually ready to start rolling out some chips from it. And it sounds like that their first chip rolling out on 18A will be Panther Lake, but we'll see. They might have some other things up their sleeves. But like I said, if NVIDIA and Broadcom all of a sudden go, hey, we're going to try Intel, see how they do. And now they're able to go, because 18A would be basically 2 node shrinks from 5 nanometer.
Mm-hmm.
Their next generation GPUs could get 2 node shrinks if they go 18A. That's huge.
Yeah.
That is huge.
Yeah.
And I mean, we can sit here and talk till we're blue in the face about a whole lot of things. But one thing we have to know is that if you can shrink 2 nodes in one generation, that's powerful. And get some backside power via performance too. I mean, they might not need a massive chip after all.
Yeah.
Might not. We shall see. We shall see indeed. Ultimately, I would say though, it's going to be interesting to see if this does happen, because that alone would probably save Intel quite heavily. So
because NVIDIA sells a ton of stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that'd be big.
Oh, that not only would that be big, that would be that would change the way things that would change Intel's outlook. That would actually maybe put Intel in a position potentially to start manufacturing chips for AMD again. That could happen. You know, they could I mean, it could. I don't know what the plan for Intel's CPU design is in the long term. It sounds like in conversations that are out there and rumors that are out there, they're going to fairly quickly go away from big little core designs. Although I kind of think that's not a bad thing. I just wish they still had the ability to run AVX 512 on them. But it sounds like they're going to try to go away from them long term, go back to all big designs or all little designs, however you want to look at it. I mean, it makes sense. And I know what they were doing. They were trying to be more efficient when they made the big little designs, but the little cores function just as well most of the time to do 90% of other tasks. So you ain't got to explain it twice to me. I get it. But you know, call the spade a spade and walk away. Um, what it does take us to is the next piece of this, which is the generation behind that, high NA EUV, which is 14A, will be right around the corner after that. And TSMC had the chance to get in on this first from who makes the things? Why can't I think of who makes the things?
Amsterdam.
Yep, you know who I'm talking about.
It's not my labs. It's
No, it's not my labs. I can't think of it right now.
ASML.
That's it. I was getting it. Yeah, ASML went to TSMC first, from what I understand, and they're like, yeah, we'll wait till it's a little more. And Intel said, you know, we screwed up with that EUV. We're not going to screw up again. So what did they do? They took it.
They spent a bunch of money.
They spent a bunch of money to be the first to get them, and 14A is going to be the first one. And like I said, the testing that they're already talking about right now, publicly talking about, it's hundreds of layers less. Okay, I say it's hundreds of layers. Don't quote me on that. It's a large percentage of layers. I mean, it might be 100 layers. It was a large number. I'd have to look it up to find out more. But I say all that to say this. If it takes off and starts moving forward quickly, TSMC could be falling behind that, which Intel is a far more geographically diversified company. And I think that is something that a lot of people, for everyone that says Intel should have sold off their chip design and foundry capabilities, like split them off and sold the foundry, I disagree. When AMD did that with Global Foundries, you can now see what Global Foundries has done. They've basically just relegated themselves to the back of the pack. They'll make, higher 12 nanometer and higher series chips for whoever needs them, whatever they need. Simpler chip design, so on and so forth. That's great. Good for them. They're not going to invest in the future, though. They're not going to be a global leader. They're not going to be that high tech. So, okay. Intel does the same thing. Guess what? That's probably about, 5 years from now, that's probably where the Intel Foundry service would be. Whatever they become renamed.
Mm.
And that's something I can't answer to 100% with 100% certainty, but I'd if I were a betting man, which I am not, that's where I'd put my money. Is that 10 years from now, Intel Foundry, if they had been spun off, they'll be in the exact same position as Global Foundry, relegating themselves to being a third tier, where now that means you only have TSMC, because Samsung is not anywhere close with their... Samsung knows how to make memory.
Mm-hmm.
And they do it dang well. Like top tier. And they're pretty good at making some ARM chips. Some simple core design chips. But when it comes to making a very complex CPU or GPU design, they're nodes behind. I mean, I think I would say that they're probably still in 8 nanometer mode from the Ampere days.
Mm.
And for those of you wondering, the biggest difference between Ada Lovelace and Ampere,
What's the node?
is the node differences. Going from Samsung to TSMC.
wasn't Nvidia using TSMC before Ampere, and then they were like, I think they got a deal from Samsung, so they
They
were like, sure.
they tried to spin it off because TSMC wanted a lot more money for the next node,
Mm,
and just like they, which is what the problem is, and where the problem will continue to go. For TSMC to say that for them to continue to do research to get better nodes, they will charge absorbent amounts of money for it, far more than it's probably worth, because it's not a regulated industry. So because of that, it goes to the highest bidder. And if Apple's willing to buy 50% of capacity every year for their M series and A series chips, and then all the other little chips that they make in there on the lowest node, and willing to throw hundreds of billions of dollars at it, they will. 100% they will. I mean, we can only assume where it's going to go. So, where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us with issues like this next topic.
I was wondering what we were gonna get here.
Oh, this is how I'm getting here. Without competition in foundry services, you wind up with these lovely,
Overpriced.
finally $3,700 RTX 5090 GPUs have found new homes. It took 2 months to move them. AIBs are charging astronomical amounts. Astronomical amounts. It's unbelievable. This is quite literally unbelievable, if you ask me. I just don't. I don't understand it, man.
Yeah, I was hoping for a much better 50 series launch. Um, I mean, it is the end of the first quarter, and we've only done one build with a 5080. The customer picked it up Friday. Um, I haven't put my hands on a 5090 yet.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
I could pay $4,000 for it. Nope. Then not doing that.
Well, I mean, what custom? I mean, it. Okay, we're doing it. We're taking the rabbit hole again.
Number one.
My favorite rabbit hole to go down.
Can you put
Going.
it in chat?
We're going to the Dell website,
Oh,
and we're going to look at RAM prices.
oh dear.
So I'm going to workstations. I'm going to precision fixed workstations, and I've had this conversation with representatives from Dell. So this is
About
not
their
some.
prices.
This is not something that they don't know about. I'm going to price out a 7875, which would be a Threadripper Pro.
I haven't done this in a hot minute. This will be fun.
Yes,
Are we
indeed.
signed in? No, we're not signed in. Cool.
So I'm going to bump it up to a 64 core just to be simple. All right.
Okay.
Now, one 16 gigabyte ECC DIMM is what you get. It's 5200 mega transfers. Not too shabby.
Let me pull up my pricing. Just curious.
You can have yours beside this.
Mm.
If you would like to go to 4. Nope, we're going to go to 8 64 gig DIMMs. Chris, you get
Okay.
to play the guessing game as the live support customer. What do you think 8 64 gig DIMMs would cost you? Basically, that 16 gig DIMM costs you nothing, so you don't get to look at that. 8 64 gig DIMMs. What you think? What you think that's gonna cost you?
3,000.
Oh boy,
Maybe.
you're about half their price. And I said about half their price. They
Are
are
they?
$7,140.68
No! Oh
to
no!
go from one 16 gig DIMM to 8 64 gig DIMMs.
Oh no!
Oh no is right.
And that was the 64s, which are pretty normal.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'm
I
scared.
give you newegg.com.
I'm scared.
Oh, I'm gonna go pull up what it's gonna cost.
Oh,
I'm gonna go
I'm curious
components,
what it goes
memory.
for on Newegg.
I'm gonna go to server memory because that's where we're going. I'm gonna go to sold by Newegg on. I'm going to go to DDR5 only on. I'm going to find DDR5. Turn it. I'm going to do anything over 4,800 megatransfers. Over that.
Yeah, we're
All right. I've got I have one 64 gig Kingston DIMM right here. One DIMM is $349.99. $350. So that would be 8 of those would be 700 times 4, which would be 20.
it's with 350 times 8.
28. Be 28. It'd be $2,800.
Yep. I was pretty close at 3,000.
You were really close at 3.
Yeah.
So
$7,000. What that?
$7,000?
Or was it?
Or
what were they at?
$7,140.68 additional. That means that they got, and that, I mean,
Means that they're still making money. Well,
keep in mind,
16.
that 16, it's got to go away. What in the ham sandwich, ladies and gentlemen?
Go do the 8x96. We're not even gonna go to the 128s yet.
They don't have any 8x96s here.
What?
Dell only offers a 128 gig DIMM. So
What?
8 128 gig DIMMs from Dell, $38,027.21 additional. I'm sure if you call Dell, you might be able to get a little bit of a price break. But
I can't make my jaw go down.
You're not getting a $20,000 price break like you probably should get. That, my friends, is hard. And the thing is, I've done this before at Dell. I've done it at Lenovo. I've done it at HP. If you're buying one of these machines, buy it like this, then just go get your 8 DIMMs from Newegg or from Amazon or from anyone else.
So,
call Chris. He'll drop ship it. He'll drop ship it to you.
I'm more than happy to help. I will save you money.
Because that does not that hurts me and pains me. And when they say that we'll give you a price break on the machine, cut you down X amount of percentage, that's great and all, but they ought to
like,
that's your highway robbery.
I buy that for well under 10 grand, under 8 grand really.
Yeah, well, I thought that was interesting.
God.
Microsoft out here trying to prevent circumvents of people installing Windows without a Windows account. Yay. Microsoft doing everything they can do. Just scrolling through the news articles to see if there's anything else before we move on. I don't think anything. Jensen, oh, well, I will say this. Jensen did have a comment on gate all around processors. Thinks they'll bring a 20% performance uplift. Well, most of that performance uplift is also coming from the fact that you're shrinking node finally. I think that's the big ticket there, guys. Yes, there's a performance uplift, but it's mostly going to be from that node shrink.
That one article with the scam reselling at 3090 as a 4090 with a fake what?
Zotac, the Zotac
Yeah.
article.
With a lapped die and a fake something.
Which one is that one?
LinkedIn is about 10 seconds behind, and so I had seen some article that you were going down.
I'll go back to it. The Zotac we got missing ROPS.
GPU scam, resales, RTX 3090 go up.
All right, let me keep going down.
Yeah. Never mind.
I can find it.
Yeah. GPU scam 3090 resale as.
Oh, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. I got it. It was right below
That's
that
messed
article.
up. That is messed up.
Selling fake RT. Selling fake 4090s. That is
Please be careful about where you're buying your video cards from. If it seems to, with anything, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Also, 4090s have been EOL totally for like 4 months.
So I have 3090s too, though.
3090s have been EOL for a year and a half.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems that yeah, who knows? Don't know why people would do what they do, but they do it all the time apparently.
So let's talk about this
So,
digital thing.
yeah, let's get on to the last two topics real quick. We'll first start with the short and dirty, and then we'll move to the long and fun. The short and dirty. How many motherboards are you selling these days that actually have just a gigabit Ethernet port on them?
A 1 gig?
Just a single 1 gig. That's
None.
it. And that, my friends, is a triumph. An absolute triumph. We talked about this probably a year and a half ago at some point in time. Because I was just, it still blew my mind then. Like, it literally blew my mind back then that there were people out there that could buy PCs that did not have 10 gig ports on them, or that did not have at least multi-gig. In the day and age that we live of moving files rapidly and doing work at a high rate of speed, to not have a faster than gigabit Ethernet port on there. I mean, heck, Wi-Fi 6E is faster than gigabit. If you've got a laptop with Wi-Fi 6E, you're technically like, that's the one move that I've yet to see, that I'm ready to see, and I'm told it's coming soon, is finally advancing past gigabit Ethernet on laptops, moving them to 2.5 gig or to 10 or to 5 gig or 10 gig, depending on what they can put in there for relatively. I mean, most laptops don't even come with an Ethernet port anymore. mainly because they're so thin.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're buying a big bulky machine that's got an Ethernet port on it, I see absolutely no reason you can't put a darn 2.5 gig in there. They're willing to pay the extra $25, guys,
Really?
for the
Yeah.
chip.
$25. Yeah.
$25. It ain't even $25. I mean, heck, if you want to put a 10 gig port on them for 10 gig port on there for them, they'll pay the extra $100.
Yeah.
It's worth it to folks to have that ability, because basically all laptops these days are running on a bunch of NVMe drives, and
Which are crazy fast.
which are crazy fast. And if you have some way you want to back them up or move a file, you know, Chris
You
and
don't
I
want
Chris and I
to
had a little fun
put them on
conversation
that.
prior. So if you have gigabit internet, most of the time the companies will always state, well, yes, you're paying for up to 980 megabits per second. That's what we guarantee you. And the reason they guarantee you that is because the maximum theoretical bandwidth across a gigabit Ethernet line is about 980 megabits per second. You really can't exceed that in theory. Like, there's not much you can maybe bounce and peak a couple times above it here and there, but that's just the limitations of the wire and the port, I should say. However, as someone that pays for gigabit Ethernet and gets 1200 megs down, meaning 1.2 gigabit, it's because I bought my own modem and it has a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port on it. So the bandwidth is out there. You just got to have it. It's got to be available to be used. And sometimes it's not, sometimes it is. But you got to think about it like that. Think about what you're looking for in the future. And once again, future proofing yourself is always a good thing. So buying something that only has a gigabit Ethernet port, it just, heck, most Wi-Fi routers you buy have at least one multi-gig and then one 10 gig port on them. At least. If they're 6E, they technically have to. Because if they're 6E, they can't offer faster speeds than that if they don't. Right? To be able to qualify, sorry. To be able to qualify as 6E, you got to have that speed. So, as you continue down the road, I'm going to continue to say this, and it's probably going to be something I bring up over and over and over again in 2025. Let's stop buying gigabit Ethernet stuff. I'm ready for the one thing I'm now ready for. I am absolutely ready for Netgear to quit selling gigabit switches. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to sell 10 gig switches. They could sell 2.5 gig switches. But let's get out of the gigabit switch game. Because I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. Who is buying a gigabit switch still? I mean, like, why are we still selling gigabit switches? The only thing a gigabit switch is good for these days is to be a PoE switch to power cameras and stuff like that. And in reality, if you buy a higher bandwidth switch, you actually can put higher bandwidth cameras on it. So let's not fool ourselves. If you're watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, you probably know a thing or two about computers, or you're wanting to learn a thing or two about computers. Networking is one of those things you need to learn a little bit about too. And leaving the gigabit networking game needs to be your first priority, because everything is finally getting that shift away. The first ports that got gigabit ports were the computers, and then you saw the switches move, and then you saw everything. So what you're seeing now is that transition happen. And as somebody that, casually likes to play games and have fun on the side, nothing beats being wired to the internet. You never do it over the wireless same way. that aside, we have a unique topic that probably is going to become a series. Just well, it's near and dear to my heart. I got drug into it. We talk about AI a lot, and AI is a big thing. Digital twins has kind of floated around with that. So let's start off and define it. What is a digital twin? Well, is there a singular definition for one? Absolutely not, because no one has created a standard yet. The most basic principles of a digital twin have three representative aspects. One, it's either giving you data on something live, so you digitally know exactly what the readout would be from the field. That's what people would call a digital twin. So it's basically like a 2D sketch of something that says, with the line drawing, that says, oh, water's supposed to be flowing through this pipe at this rate. This says it is. This says it's doing it. It is. People call that a digital twin. The second would be, okay, going out and building a 3D model of something. And then building something based on that 3D model. And someone would say, well, this is a digital twin. Well, unless you know it was built exactly as that model was built, then it's not quite a digital twin. It's close. To me, the best and most accurate description I like to give people is taking the real world and applying it digitally in a three-dimensional space. So having a three-dimensional model that is built from a three-dimensional scan of the environment once it is actually built, you can have that model to start and modify it as it's being built. That's usually the fastest way to build them. But you take that model, you modify it to where it's what's actually in the field, and then as you have live data that can be streamed back, it gets shown in to where you click a link on that model and it says, hey, this is the bubble that pops up that tells me my flow rate. Or this is the bubble that pops up that tells me my voltage going to this motor. Those kind of things. And it can give you relay information where you can actually, so you've got a signal that says, hey, this signal is out of spec. You can click that signal and say, take me to where it is in the plant, and it can drop you in it on top of it. And it's a great tool for doing that. Why are they rising now more than ever? Why is the term so popular on LinkedIn? Why is it a buzzword amongst the industry? Why do you hear people like NVIDIA and the AI talkers talk about it all the time? You know, all the big, companies that work in computer hardware. The biggest reason that it's such a big talking point is because if you have the real world digitally, you have a digital 3D map. Things like self-driving cars become easier. You can program faster for them. Simulations of events become easier. You can make simulations, that are true to world. And ultimately, you have a technology now with digital twins that will allow you to accurately depict what you're wanting done in the long run. You can actually step back and say, hey, this is what we want to see. This is how we want to see it. This is how we want it manipulated. This is what we need manipulated. We got to go change this pump out. All right. Or we got to figure out how to get this car, or this 18-wheeler down this highway where there's a couple of low spots. What do we need to do to make that work? Do we need to excavate somewhere to make it lower so it can get under something? Things like that. Do we need to build ramps to go around? Those kind of things. It eliminates a lot of the question marks of society. AI is nothing without a digital twin. AI is just a great way to write a paper, send an email, do all the things that AI does great right now. But if you give AI digital twins, all of a sudden AI can start to learn from these digital twins and learn from how do we manipulate these vehicles to make them work in you know, unison? How do we how do we optimize traffic flows? How do we optimize traffic light patterns? Because it can actually see, well, okay, you got all this traffic coming from this one road, but not really. You've got this other road that turns into it where 90% of the people are coming from. And so sometimes you need to shut this light off a little bit longer at certain periods of the day. It lets AI do its thing a little bit better. It ultimately, things like digital twins are they're going to become bigger and bigger buzzwords, because in the construction industry especially, it's just something that it's needed. In the active, any company that has a facility in the active facilities management space, it's a necessity. And it's only going to grow. So the more you're thinking about it, the more you're hearing the buzzwords and listening to them, just remember that one. Digital twin is going to be something it's going to be talked about more and more and more, and it's going to show up more and more and more in ways you never thought it would. I truly believe it will be something that will become a game changer for a lot of companies. And there's a lot of companies out there that are pioneering this kind of stuff. I mean, as someone who spent a bulk of my career working on these things, not knowing that was what it was, I can speak to how beneficial they can be. But like I say, as I break it down more and more in my head, this is probably definitely going to end up being a topic that we might have some sidecasts, as I'll call them. We have a little snippets, maybe pop in live for an hour or so, and say, or half an hour or something. Just give a pop up. Ruben, you know what? I have to agree. Healthcare, well, I mean, as much as they strain the healthcare industry, absolutely. That's also really cool. That's the first time someone has commented from LinkedIn inside of the actual podcast. That's awesome.
YouTube is probably also 20 minutes behind. At least I would say on my end.
I don't know that YouTube's 20 minutes behind, but
maybe 10 to 15 minutes.
YouTube's usually the one that's right on top of things.
So when we were we were talking about, God, was it Ethernet? It was still showing you on
the fake story.
Yeah.
It's probably, I'll say this much. I think, honestly, there once again, another reason to move beyond gigabit Ethernet. Right there. No, but digital twins are going to be, it's going to be a fun topic, and it's something that, like I said, being near and dear to my heart. I think it's worth my time to break out, maybe a couple of 30-minute sessions and just say, hey, here's a unique piece about it. Here's a unique take on it. The countless amounts of stuff time I put into it. Yeah.
Mm.
90 seconds. Now I have to try some science. There it is.
Thanks for me.
Yeah. Lag is something you definitely don't want when you're getting shot at by 13-year-old boys in Call of Duty. That's a fact. They will kill you very quickly that way. Your click of the mouse is not as fast as their click of the mouse.
God.
Maybe that's something too. Maybe a series on breaking down network dynamics. Things like ping, what's latency, what's packet loss.
I think that would be a good idea.
I gotta find. Yeah. Well, and I will say, Chance is the network engineer. He knows that kind of stuff. So maybe he'll shed a little more light on it.
Oh, Ruben commented, well, on YouTube.
He's got 90 seconds on YouTube. Okay, thanks, Ruben. 90-ish seconds. That's kind of sad that it's a minute and a half behind. Considering
Yeah.
I feel like it should have started sooner because I hit start the stream a little late on the LinkedIn side of things. We do appreciate the comment though. That's awesome. Um, and you know, like I said, Ruben, that's the other reason we're going to be trying to move to more platforms at time. The one platform I just don't think I could ever get behind is Twitch. I don't know why we would ever be on Twitch unless we decided to have one of those boys' night Battlefield sessions, Chris.
We did PC builds on live stream for a very long time, and we bounced around from YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitch. And if you're on Twitch, you can only be on Twitch, as far as I know.
Not from Streamlabs OBS.
Oh,
I
well,
can broadcast to it as well. I don't know if I have a max number of streams based on the thing that I bought 2 years ago, but whenever we started doing this. But yeah, no, basically when I bought the gold plan with Streamlabs, there is a way to stream to multiple platforms at one time, and Twitch is one of them.
mm,
I'm not sure I would want to, but I feel like there's more riffraff over there, if you know what I mean. Not well, there might be people that might be interested in hearing our take on things, but they might get bored with our rabbit holes pretty quickly.
eh.
So, being that it is 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, the regular crowd is shuffling in. Yeah, he's a piano man. That's right. Based on that, I think we will wrap up for today. Gonna close it out the same way I like to close. I like to always close out the old ones. So if anybody does decide when they're watching this in the future, they have more comments. Oh, we got a question. Man, I can't not answer a question.
That depends entirely what the current computer specs are.
I'm gonna answer that with one word: yes. But it's
Yes,
not. It's not the same computer you're thinking it is. You have to. I mean, I'll put it to you this way: the system I have, absolutely, the one that's streaming this live right now, Mike, 100%.
But can a $4,000 laptop? No.
Can a Intel Core or AMD Ryzen desktop? Probably not. It could handle it, and here's the thing: everything can handle anything in chunks. It's just like AI models. So you can think of digital twins like you think of AI models. So if you have large AI models, then they need large systems to be trained on and run on. But if you have small AI models, then they can handle and be run on small systems. So if your digital twin is of a couple of rooms, that $4,000 laptop probably is going to work just fine. Now, if you're trying to look at a 400,000 square foot facility or a multi-acre facility you're working on, probably not. Just like whenever you go out and do massive capture jobs with, UAVs and whatnot, as I've had to learn being a pilot now, you're not going to be able to handle it on a laptop anywhere near as fast as you can on a desktop. And this is coming from the beefy spec'd out laptops that I have versus, at the time, a mildly spec'd out PC before I got the 60 core in. We're talking a difference of days in terms of time to process. That's kind of gonna be the same kind of setup too. There's gonna come a point when you run out of memory, basically, because that's the biggest issue with digital twins, with AI. It's the actual processing bit of it. It never really seems to take near as much as we think it will. It's always the memory bit of it and having enough physical memory on the computer to handle that. And as much as I wish, Chris, I wish we had SSDs that were fast enough to act like RAM, they're not.
Just not.
So
When you
that's
when
your
you run out of
bottleneck.
RAM, it is quite apparent.
No, we call that a dad size problem because it's apparent.
Oh, yeah, it's going from days to weeks.
Oh, I think it goes from your transition usually goes from hours to days, and sometimes from hours to weeks. I saw that early on with LiDAR processing.
Yeah, buy more RAM,
More
buy a
RAM,
better computer.
more RAM, and it was more RAM first, and then once I achieved what I thought was RAM parity, I was like, oh well, let me put some more cores with this, and then I realized, well, now that I have more cores, I need more RAM to satisfy more cores. It's a never ending struggle at that point. So yeah, not fun, is it? Not fun, is it, Mike? But Mike, like I said, feel free to reach out to us. Shoot us a note. Shoot us an email. Um, our email is itguys@notyourtypicalitguys.com. Feel free to shoot us a note. We'll get it. We'll get a reply back to you if you have more questions or something like that. Um, if you have any topics you want discussed more in the future, like I said, digital twins is going to be a big one for us this year. Like I said, a whole series probably coming behind this one. Might definitely have to pull out some conversations with folks like you, Mike, and discuss the prominence and now necessity of things like GIS mapping and UAV lidar and photogrammetry stuff. That's big into necessity now, especially to make these digital twins truly twins. But since Chance isn't here for me and Chance, I'm Brad Medlin. Um,
I'm Chris.
we are not your typical IT guys. You guys have an absolutely wonderful night, and we will